Senate will come to order. Those not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those in the floor will please rise as we're led in prayer by Pastor Brian Dean of Grace Baptist Temple in St. Albans, West Virginia. Please remain standing after the prayer as the senator from Tucker leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful most of all just simply for who you are. We're thankful that you are the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And Father, I thank you for all the men and women that are in this room, and not just for who and what they are here, but outside of this place. I pray for their homes and their families, their responsibilities there, but certainly what goes on in this room, what happens in here, we know is actually ordained of God. And so today, decisions will be made, issues will be discussed, and votes will be cast. Lord, I pray you would give them your wisdom. Your word says that if any man lack wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all men liberally. So we pray you'd give them wisdom and that you'd be pleased and honored with all that goes on here today. And most of all, Father, we want to acknowledge that what our country, what the world, and what our state needs more than anything is just a special touch from you. And so, Lord, touch us, touch our country, bless our nation, and we'll give you praise and glory for it. For it's in your Son's precious name, Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Dean. Senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would the members and our guests in the gallery stand as we pledge our allegiance to the greatest country in the world? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the Journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, March 7th, 2023. The Senate met at 11:11 a.m.
Senator from Jefferson requests unanimous consent for the reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. On behalf of the Senate, it's my pleasure to welcome the honorary pages today. Please stand to be recognized as your name is called. As guest is the junior senator from the 17th, Jaden Sneed and Abigail Beaver. As guest is the junior senator from the 7th, Jessica Brewer, Kyler Blair, Kason Hurlis, Elliot Crutchley, and Eastlyn Crutchley. As guest is the junior senator from the 8th, Virginia Vance, Brianna Summerlin, and Mickey Newdecker. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome? Did I miss you? Did I miss your name? No, come up here and tell me. It's Jake what? Greg. I'm sorry. Further introductions. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the entire Senate, it is your honor and mine to introduce our doc of the day in the rear of the chamber. From Lewisburg, West Virginia, we have Dr. Carolyn Bridget Morrison. If you wouldn't mind standing, let the Senate give you a warm welcome.
Senior Senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. If you hadn't have introduced him, I wouldn't be able to introduce his mother. If everybody would welcome, seated in the President's Gallery, the chaperone for Jake's mother, Jessica Schlott, if she would stand.
Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the Senate, I'll draw your attention to the President's Gallery, and I'll ask Shane Arthur to stand. Shane is currently a junior at James Monroe High School, and he serves as the West Virginia Youth and Government President of the Senate. So, Mr. President, you have some competition up there. After graduation, Shane plans on attending the U.S. Naval Academy and studying engineering. Please make him feel welcome.
Senator from Marion.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Today, on behalf of my junior senator from Monongalia and the entire Judiciary Committee, we have some very special guests with us today. They are the family of our beloved counsel, Zach Villanco. So there's a little history with me and the Villanco family, so I may talk about that just a little bit. I don't want to take too much time, so let me start with some introductions. First, I want to introduce Zach's dad, Steve. Please stand. He had 30 years as a special agent with the FBI, and he was stationed in New York, and he responded to the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. And in the wake of the September 11th attacks, he responded to the crash of Flight 93 in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Let's thank him for his service to our country. And of course, Mr. President, behind every successful man, there's a very powerful woman, usually rolling her eyes, as we say. But let me introduce Zach's mother and Steve's wife, who was a public school teacher for over a decade. Carrie, please stand and let the Senate make you welcome as well. And then he also has a guy I kind of grew up with both of the guys, Steve, but his Uncle Rich is here. And if you hung around Morgantown much and you hung around the bars down there, like I've heard some people did, you'll know him as the longtime manager at Chicken Bones. Rich, please stand up and let the House make you welcome. Senate, I keep saying House. And last but certainly not least, I am honored. I'm truly honored to introduce this lady. She was a small business person in Marion County for many, many years. She and her late husband were dear friends of my family. And her mother and father-in-law owned the ice plant, Mr. President, when they used to deliver ice to houses before modern-day refrigeration. Very, very successful. And as that era changed, they kept the business, and it was known as North Pole Ice and Storage. It was a package store and had ice freezer storage all throughout there. It was utilized by everyone in Marion County. And little history behind this, I had an aunt, and she only had a 4th grade education. And she got a job for North Pole Ice and Storage. And it's the only job she ever had in her whole life. She was their bookkeeper, and she was their secretary. And she was employed by North Pole Ice and Storage for 70 years. They gave her a job and gave her an opportunity when her mom died, and she had to be the leader of the family. So she quit school to support her family. And I've known Laura. Laura's known me since I was born. Since I was born, Laura's been just like family to us. There's no question about it. She's the undisputed matriarch of this family, without question. And today, Mr. President, this beautiful lady, and I hope she don't get mad for me saying this, but it's her 87th birthday. Let's welcome Laura Villanco to the Senate, please. Mr. President, I see in the gallery, too, we have a champion of economic development in Marion County with us today, and he's here with the American Red Cross. Will Alan Staggers please stand and let the Senate make you welcome as well. And, Mr. President, I'm going to give you a fair warning. I may try to interrupt here in a little bit. My family showed up unexpectedly. My little baby grandson's here. It's the first time he's ever been here. He's 2. So they had to take him out of the gallery because, he got a little fussy. But I may ask to return to the second order of business here in a little bit. So don't get mad at me.
This chair likes fussy babies. They need to bring him back.
I'll do it. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you again. It's a wonderful, wonderful day to see the Villanco family in their state house. Appreciate y'all coming down. And you have a fine son who does a fine job for us in the Judiciary Committee. Right, Mr. Chairman? Absolutely. Thanks again. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Somers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to recognize today's Jennings Randolph High School Award recipient, James Monroe High School. In the gallery today, there are 2 students most responsible for this achievement, and they are being recognized today as honorary secretaries of state. I would like to ask the following people to stand to be recognized: Luke Jackson and Brady Carr, both seniors at James Monroe High School. Joining them today are West Virginia Secretary of State Mike Warner and James Monroe High School teacher Ashley Mann. Please give them a warm welcome.
Junior Senator from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In the President's Gallery today, we have two chaperones of our honorary pledges. And when I name your name, if you don't mind standing, but on behalf of the senior senator of the 17th and myself, we have Annabelle Beaver, who is the grandmother of Abigail. If you would stand, please. And John Sneed, who is the grandfather of Jaden. If the Senate would join us in making them welcome. Thank you.
Senior Senator from the 17th, followed by the junior from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is American Red Cross Month, and we are honored to have several of these volunteers with us. There'll be a resolution later today, but while we got the chance, if they wouldn't mind standing up and let the Senate say thank you and appreciate everything you guys do for all of us all year round.
Junior Senator from the 7th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the senator from Logan and myself, we have in the North Gallery Kim Blair, who happens to be the chaperone of our pages from PK to 8 Hearts, and she's also a Lincoln County Commissioner. So please join me in making her feel welcome.
Are there further introductions? Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the House amended and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 205 relating to registration plates.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 205.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 205. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill rewrites a long section of code on special vehicle license plates and creates multiple separate sections for each type of special plate. The House deleted provisions that would have allowed the legislature to create a new license plate by joint resolution. Instead, it amended the bill to allow the legislature to waive a requirement for an organization that requests a new special plate by concurrent resolution. The requirement that may be waived is that such organization first deposit with the DMV the fees necessary to cover the first year's basic registration, one-time design, and manufacturing costs for the new plate. The House also created a new section, 17A-3-14I, which allows for rulemaking by the DMV. The amendments are in keeping with the original intent of the bill. Happy to take questions. Otherwise, I urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 205. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk to prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 267, updating law regarding prior authorizations. The House amended the title only.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 267.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 267. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, as the clerk mentioned, it was a title amendment only. I urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 267. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
The House amended and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 463, increasing validity of CDL instruction permit.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 463.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 463. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill increases the validity of commercial driver's license permits from 6 months to 1 year. The House amended the bill to allow more 18-year-olds to obtain a CDL instruction permit by dispensing with the requirement that they had that they held a Class E or Class D license for at least 1 year before receiving a commercial driver's instruction permit. That change is in keeping with the bill's purpose, which is to make it easier for license permit holders to receive a CDL license. Happy to take questions, otherwise urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 463. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House.
The House amended and passed committee substitute for Senate Bill 476, exempting managed care contracts from purchasing requirements.
Message will be received, Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 476.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 476. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of the bill is to exempt the Bureau for Medical Services from the requirements of the Purchasing Division with respect to managed care contracts. The House amended the bill to correct a technical correction and also placed a proviso in the bill that states for purposes of continuity of care, the Bureau of Medical Services may, not one, disrupt existing West Virginia Medicaid and West Virginia Children's Health Insurance Plan enrollment within an existing managed care organization as part of such purchasing exemption. And number two, redistribute or reassign membership for an existing managed care organization to any new qualifying managed care entrant as part of any contract awarded pursuant to such exemption. The Bureau shall integrate any and all new qualifying managed care entrants into the state's auto-assigned logic for new members and shall publicize any eligible managed care organization for the purposes of self-selection by the member. No plan shall have preferential assignment of new members, and each plan will be assigned equally. The House also amended the title and made the bill effective from passage. Happy to take questions. Otherwise, I urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 476. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. Question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor will vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective for passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House.
The clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of House Bill 2904, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Commerce, Office of the Secretary.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with and the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 2904, supplementing and amending appropriations to the Department of Commerce, Office of the Secretary. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2908, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Commerce, Division of Forestry.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with, the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2908, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Commerce, Division of Forestry. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2914, supplementing and amending appropriations to Governor's Office, Civil Contingent Fund.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2914, supplementing and amending appropriations to Governor's Office Civil Contingent Fund. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3040, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Administration, Office of the Secretary.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 3065, supplementing appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities, Aeronautics Commission.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 3065, supplementing appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities, Aeronautics Commission. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 3067, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities, Public Transit.
The message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 3067, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities, Public Transit. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3074, supplementing appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 3074, supplementing appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 3108, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities, State Rail Authority.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 3108, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Transportation, Division of Multimodal Transportation Facilities, State Rail Authority. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Communications from the executive.
There are none.
Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2436 relating to the implementation of an acuity-based patient classification system, with amendments from the Committee on Health and Human Resources pending, and reports the same back with the recommendation that it do pass as amended by the Committee on Health and Human Resources, to which the bill was first referred. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2436 relating to the implementation of an acuity-based patient classification system. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 2939 relating to filing of lien by municipalities for collection of refuse fees, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Request unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed House Bill 2939 relating to the filing of lien by municipalities for collection of refuse fees. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3147 to create the Upper Ohio Valley Trail Network, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3147 to create the Upper Ohio Valley Trail Network. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ask unanimous consent to return to second order of business, please.
Is there objection? Chair hears none.
Well, I'm
Senator from
impressed.
Marion.
Thank you. Mr. President, I have some very special guests with me today that just blew me away. Senator Hamilton told me there was a couple irate women out in the hall looking for me about a bill, and I went out there to find some people that I truly love, and they truly surprised me today because my grandson, he's a little over 2, and this is his first trip to the Capitol. So Grandma and Mama and my grandbaby Keon, my lovely wife Tina is with me, and my beautiful daughter Jessica, and the apple of Pappy's eye, Keon. Please welcome them to the Senate.
Are there further introductions? Clerk, proceed.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 3166 to permit a hospital to hold a patient experiencing a psychiatric emergency for up to 72 hours, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received, Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed House Bill 3166 to permit a hospital to hold a patient experiencing a psychiatric emergency for up to 72 hours. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3270 to amend the deliberate intent statute to limit non-economic damages to $500,000, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received, Senior Senator from 17.
Mr. President, request unanimous consent. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3270 to amend the deliberate intent statute to limit non-economic damages to $500,000. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Your Committee on Health and Human Resources has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3306 relating to the organizational structure of the Office of Drug Control Policy, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Michael J. Maroney, Chair.
Report will be received, Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3306 relating to the organizational structure of the Office of Drug Control Policy. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 3360 creating an Office of the Inspector General within the Department of Homeland Security, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received, Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration. Read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed House Bill 3360 creating an Office of the Inspector General within Department of Homeland Security. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed House Bill 3439 to limit the civil liability of child-placing agencies that obtain an insurance policy in the amount of not less than $1 million per incident, and has amended same, and reports the same back with recommendation that it do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received, Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Engrossed House Bill 3439 to limit the civil liability of child-placing agencies that obtain an insurance policy in the amount of not less than $1 million per incident. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills.
There are none.
Resolutions.
Senate Resolution 48 by Senator Caputo designating March 9th, 2023 as Recovery Community Day.
Under the rules of the Senate, the resolution will lie over one day. Motions. Petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 23 requesting study on impact of public benefit income eligibility guidelines on direct care workforce participation.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the resolution be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Senate Resolution 47, recognizing March as American Red Cross Month.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with, the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and placed upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 47, recognizing March as American Red Cross Month.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. During American Red Cross Month, this is American Red Cross Month, we celebrate the humanitarian spirit of West Virginians who continue the life-saving legacy of Clara Barton. She founded the organization more than 140 years ago. Since then, they've been providing emergency shelter, donating life-saving blood, supporting military members and veterans and their families, are just a few examples of what these everyday, ordinary individuals do to lend a helping hand to make a difference for neighbors in need. The support of volunteers and generous donations are critical to the community's resilience. We recognize this month in honor of those who continue the noble mission of Clara Barton and dedicate the month of March as American Red Cross Month. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2002 relating to providing support for families. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bills. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2002 first increases the non-family adoption tax credit from $4,000 to $5,000. This credit is for expenses related to non-family adoptions and can either be fully realized by eligible taxpayers or spread out over 3 years. The bill also opens up DHHR provided early intervention services like Right from the Start, Drug-Free Moms and Babies, and the 0 to 3 programs to adoptive parents who are residents of this state and otherwise qualify. Of course, this bill does not require any adoptive parent to use these services. It just opens them up to such parents. This bill establishes the West Virginia Mothers and Babies Support Program under the Bureau of Public Health. This allows the Bureau to contract with the management agency to help financially assist pregnancy help organizations, which are defined in the bill as organizations that do not perform, prescribe, refer for, or encourage abortion, nor do they affiliate with any organizations that do. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill, and I wanted to just say one thing. Although it is a House bill, work on this was commenced under leadership and was championed by our senator from Pleasants County. And I think as we pass this bill, I just wanted to mention the distinguished senator from Pleasants who raised the issue with the Senate some months ago.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 31 yeas, 1 nay, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions sent to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2004, prevent the use of payment card processing systems for surveillance of Second Amendment activity and discriminatory conduct.
Senator from Morgan.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. First, before I explain the bill, I need to request a ruling of the chair under Rule 43.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Question unanimous consent that the bill over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2026, authorizing municipalities with police or firefighter employees in PERS to elect to become participating employer in municipal police officer and firefighter retirement system for a limited time.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the bill over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed House Bill 2283 relating to authorized expenditures of revenues from certain state funds for fire departments. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2283 affects our 420-plus volunteer fire departments. This bill comes at the request of our state auditor and state treasurer to provide some clarification. There are three main clarifications in this bill. First, it says that monies received from the Municipal Pension and Protection Fund and the Fire Protection Fund shall be distributed and deposited into a separate bank account solely for the purposes of receiving those funds. Second, the bill states that other monies received by fire departments, including state grants, cannot be commingled with the state monies just described in one. And third, throughout this bill, it updates permissible expenditures from these state funds. Happy to answer any questions, and I urge passage of the bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senator, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea, those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2509, creating the Uniform Premarital Agreement Act. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2509 is a uniform act on premarital agreements, sometimes referred to as antenuptial or prenuptial agreements. We don't have much in our code as relates to this subject now. We have some decisions of the Supreme Court that address the validity of premarital or prenuptial agreements in West Virginia. But this act, based on the strike and insert amendment we adopted yesterday, would create a whole new article in our code. It goes in Chapter 48, and it would be designated as Article 1A, and it has, can't count, at least 10 or 11 sections. So the first section includes definitions of what a premarital agreement is. It defines the term property. Section 201 describes formalities that must be observed. So a premarital agreement has to be in writing and signed by both parties, and it has to contain an acknowledgement that both parties have had an opportunity to consult with counsel. It is enforceable without consideration. Section 301 addresses content of such agreements, and it may cover such things as the rights and obligations of each party in any property of either or both whenever acquired or located, wherever acquired or located. It can cover the right to buy, sell, use, transfer, exchange, abandon, lease, consume, expend, assign, create security interests, et cetera, et cetera. It can cover the disposition of property upon separation, divorce, or death, or the occurrence or non-occurrence of any event. It can address modification or elimination of spousal support. It can address the making of a will or a trust. It can address ownership rights and disposition and death benefits from a life insurance policy. It can cover choice of law, governing the construction of the instrument, and any other matter, including personal rights and obligations not in violation of public policy or statute. The right of child support may not be adversely affected by a premarital agreement. So that's out. You can't make a binding contract that says one or the other parties will not have an obligation to pay child support. Section 401 says the premarital agreement becomes effective upon the marriage. Section 501 addresses how it can be amended or revoked. Section 601 addresses enforcement of the agreement. Generally, they're going to be enforceable unless a party proves that, one, a party did not execute the agreement voluntarily, 2, either party was under the age of 18 when the marriage occurred, or 3, the agreement was unconscionable when it was executed, and before the execution of the agreement, the party was not provided with adequate financial disclosures or did not voluntarily and expressly waive the disclosures and did not have or reasonably could not have had adequate knowledge of the property financial obligations. There's more language in that section on enforcement. Section 701 addresses unenforceable terms, and those include adversely affecting a child's right to support or restrictions on the availability to a victim of domestic violence actions under the law or remedies, or purports to modify the grounds for a court-decreed separation or divorce. Section 801 addresses void marriage. It says if a marriage is determined to be void, then an agreement that would otherwise have been a premarital agreement is enforceable only to the extent necessary to avoid an inequitable result. There are Section 901 limitations of actions. Section 1001 is a section on construction and applicability and effective date. This act will cover agreements that are entered into after July 1, 2023, not prenuptial or premarital agreements that have been entered into before that date. And then the article, Section 1101, is the short title, the Uniform Premarital Act. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2515 require agencies to develop and maintain an inventory of available services for single parents wanting to obtain degrees, secure training, or re-enter the workforce. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Government Organization moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Summers.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2515 requires Workforce West Virginia, the Bureau for Family Assistance, and the HEPC to coordinate to prepare and maintain a list of services available for individuals who wish to obtain a degree, secure workforce training, or re-enter the workforce. The amendment adds language to one code section in the bill, 18B 1B-4, to resolve a code conflict with Senate Bill 10, the Campus Self-Defense Act. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Government Organization. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. As explained just now in connection with the amendment, House Bill 2515 requires cooperation between 3 state agencies regarding services for those wishing to further their education, receive workforce training, or re-enter the workforce. The agencies are required to compile and maintain a list of those services and show them on their respective websites. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Government Organization moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2540, Travel Insurance Model Act. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee substitute for House Bill 2540 is a model act, travel insurance. It's a travel insurance model act. Yesterday, we adopted on the floor a strike and insert amendment that had come from the Committee on Banking and Insurance. The Judiciary Committee did not amend that or recommend amendments to it, and it was adopted yesterday, so it's now part of the bill. It creates a whole new article in our state code, and it's designated as, let's see, Article 12. It's in Article 12, no, excuse me, Article 62 is the new article in the code, and it has 12 sections that are all new. And Article 12 is in, Article 62 is in Chapter 33, of course, which is our insurance chapter. And we repeal one section of existing code. That's in 3312, 32B. So we have in code now, which we repeal, a single section of code that deals with travel insurance, and we're replacing it, if this is enacted, with a bill that creates a whole new article on the subject. So let me just briefly say that the new sections represent a synthesis of model acts that have been produced by the National Conference of Insurance Legislators, and I think that's NCOIL, as it's normally referred to, and the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, along with some subsections that were lifted from the article or the section that we're repealing. The bill defines terms. It creates a licensing regime. It imposes a $200 licensing fee, and that matches what was imposed in the repealed section. It establishes a tax on the premiums charged. It creates forms and specifies rates. It allows comprehensive travel protection plans, which combine travel insurance, travel assistance service, cancellation fee waivers, to be sold for a single price if certain disclosures and other conditions are met. It makes agents or entities offering travel insurance subject to West Virginia's Unfair Trade Practices Act. That's also in the insurance chapter. And specifically deems certain activities such as selling illusory travel insurance to be an unfair trade practice. It requires cancellation with a full refund to be available for 10 days after purchase of a package. It permits travel insurance to be provided to individuals, to groups, or via blanket policies. And it authorizes the insurance commissioner to enforce the new sections, and it grants the insurance commissioner rulemaking authority. All right, Mr. President, that outlines the whole import of the 12 sections of the new act. I'll be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative. I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Banking and Insurance moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed Committee Substitute for House Bill 2759 relating to updating the health care provider tax. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill creates the ability for the Bureau for Medical Services to calculate the allowable provider tax rate using Center for Medicare and Medicaid methodology that would increase the provider tax rate each year to the maximum rate allowed by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and expand the class of practitioners eligible for the fee schedules. The purpose of this tax is to provide non-federal share funding for practitioner payments in accordance with federal Medicaid methodologies. If enacted, the legislation will eliminate the need for the legislature to address this issue each year. The bill has an internal effective date of July 1, 2023. Mr. President, urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk to prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine to ascertain the results. On this question, 23 yeas, 8 nays, 3 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2820 to provide Hope Scholarship recipients with the ability to play sports.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question is consent that further consideration of the bill be deferred to the conclusion of bills today on first read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2900 relating to the Deputy Sheriff Retirement System.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3012 to encourage economic development regarding rare earth elements and critical minerals as defined by providing temporary severance tax relief. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this bill is to encourage economic development regarding rare earth elements and critical minerals by providing temporary severance tax relief. The bill exempts all severance taxation for 9 years beginning July 1, 2023 for severing rare earth elements and critical minerals. The section also defines rare earth elements and critical minerals. The definitions came from a recent U.S. Department of Interior report and from the periodic table of elements. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk to prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3146, establishing in West Virginia Code the contents of the Uniform Public Meetings During Emergencies Act. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3146 does, as the short title suggests, it addresses virtual meetings during states of emergency. Now, we amended the bill yesterday on the floor and amended into this, a strike insert amendment, the entire contents of our Senate bill on the same subject, which was Senate Bill 296 that we passed earlier in the session. The bill will create a whole new article in the code. It's designated as Article 9C, which goes into Chapter 6, and it has 10 new sections of code, all new law. It is a uniform act, I think, comes from the Commission on Uniform State Laws. Section 1 is a short title. Section 2 is definitions. Section 3 references virtual meetings. Section 4 provides authorization for virtual meetings. And Section 5 addresses the conduct of virtual meetings. There are sections in the bill, Section 6 and Section 7, which relate to public observation of virtual meetings. That's ensured under the bill. And Section 7 addresses public participation So how you do that virtually when public has a right to participate in the meeting. Section 8 references notices, and Section 9 addresses procedural rules. The final section is a reference to the Electronic Signatures and Global and National Commerce Act. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill. Again.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate. This shall the bill pass. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk to prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3214 to create the Road Optimization and Assessment Data Pilot Project. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill creates the Road Optimization and Assessment Data Pilot Program, which is to be implemented by the Commissioner of Highways. It requires advanced methods of assessing the condition and maintenance of roads of West Virginia using Monongalia County and Preston County as test areas. The goal is to enable preventive road maintenance rather than reactive road maintenance. The pilot program has a term of 5 years, during which time the Division of Highways would report to the Joint Legislative Oversight Commission on Department of Transportation Accountability. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
The question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is shall the bill pass. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure move to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3233 relating generally to uniform and equipment allowances for the National Guard. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on the Military moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Brooke.
The amendment that came from the Senate Military Committee is purely technical, just did some cleanup. I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on the Military. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Question now is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill would amend provisions of the West Virginia Code relating to uniforms for members of the National Guard. Current law authorizes an annual $100 allowance paid to members for uniforms and equipment. This bill would increase this up to $750 as determined by our state's Adjutant General. The bill would also authorize any member of the National Guard to request reimbursements to offset expenses for maternity or other specialty uniforms. The Adjutant General would have discretion to authorize such reimbursement in sums as he or she would allow, but no more than often than once per 36-month period. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3261 relating to social workers' qualifications. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Summers. Senator Bede. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3261 amends two sections of our state code. Well, it amends one section and it adds a new section. The original House bill amended a single section, and that was in Chapter 30, Article 30, Section 16, and that's a section in the code that relates to the licensure of social workers. And the bill, as it came to us from the House, said that if an individual who was a licensed social worker lost his or her employment due to a reduction in force or to be unable to work for medical reasons, then the individual may request that the board, that's the Social Work Licensing Board, allow for a reasonable interruption in continuous employment to provide additional time for the individual to complete the requirements of a provisional license. And then on the floor of the Senate yesterday, Mr. President, we amended into that bill an additional section, which is in Chapter 49, Article 2. The new section is designated 110A, and its purpose is to allow the DHHR or its successor, I guess the Bureau, to hire people who are unlicensed as social workers and retired law enforcement officers to work as child protective services workers, youth services workers, other jobs in that field. And it makes clear that this is in addition to, not in lieu of, any other authority they have to hire people who are not licensed as social workers. And that provision has a sunset of December 31st in the year 2028. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Marion. Will the Senator from Morgan yield? Senator yields.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been getting a ton of emails on this last amendment, and the concern seems to be the hiring of folks who do not have a social worker's license. And, you know, is there anything in the bill to deem some type of qualification for these positions?
Yes, there is.
And where would that be?
It's a great question, and I'm sorry, I should have mentioned that. Let me give you a little background. You know, we've talked on the floor, I know I have, about our crisis in the Eastern Panhandle with not being able to hire anybody. So fortuitously, I was having a conversation about something else with a gentleman named Pete Chekovich. And Dr. Chekovich is the dean and president of the Blue Ridge Community and Technical College in Martinsburg. And he said, you know, we got on to this subject, which was not the subject or original subject for the conversation, but we got on to this subject. And he said, you know, we have a 2-year associate's degree that we offer in social work. And so I thought, well, you know, that's something, that's some training. And so what this bill says as to that is that a person could be a retired law enforcement officer and be hired, but they could also be hired for employment in those areas if they're at least 18 years of age, they have an associate's degree in social work or other related field from an accredited college, university, community and technical college, community college, or junior college. They provide to the Bureau letters of recommendation from persons not related to them, that they not be an alcohol or drug abuser, as those terms are defined in Chapter 27, that they satisfy the requirements the West Virginia Clearance for Access Registry and Employment Screening Act. So that's where they would have to be checked out to make sure they don't have, background problems. And they have to meet any other requirements established by the Bureau, and the Bureau would then provide training for them to start work. So there are limitations on, it's not just anybody.
I understand that, and I certainly appreciate the background checks, but their concern, Mr. Chairman, is that we're diminishing the profession and basically dumbing it down, if you will, that we'll be putting people out in the field doing this type of work who has no background at all in social work. You're not afraid that could happen with this amendment?
No, no, because the problem is right now we don't have anybody. We don't have anybody. I mentioned this before on the floor of the House. Senate, we have a situation in our Eastern Panhandle where we don't have social workers who can work these cases. Members, my friend from Marion may remember, it's burned into my memory. There were, for the months of September, October, November, December, and January, there were 163 calls, hotline calls, reports in my little county of Morgan for abuse and neglect that should be investigated. Now, some of them probably can be screened out without a face-to-face investigation, but not all 163. And the prosecutor for Morgan County, our prosecuting attorney, told me that there had been, in those 5 months, 0 petitions for abuse and neglect filed by the department in Morgan County. Not one. Not one. They don't have, and the reason is they don't have anybody. They don't have a caseworker. They can't hire one. So, if there's a retired law enforcement officer who's willing to, take a job for the DHHR and go rap on the doors to see if the kids are okay, or a kid coming out of Blue Ridge with an associate's degree to do some of those jobs, go rap on the door and lay eyes on a child to see if the child's okay, we'll take them.
Well, I appreciate you yielding to me, Mr. Chairman. I've got some deep concerns about it. Not going to fall on the sword and speak against it, but I do have some concerns about just basically moving in that direction.
Well, let me say this, and I appreciate the gentleman's concerns. The DHHR, or the Bureau as its successor, is not required to hire people under this. This just gives them the authority to do so. And what I'm hoping is the DHHR is going to be very careful and vigilant in seeing, that the people they hire to fill these roles, if they do, are good, strong, qualified people.
Well, I thank you for yielding. I appreciate the good response. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 29 yeas, 3 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has the title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3299 relating to natural resource police officer retirement. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3299 affects the Natural Resources Police Officer Retirement System. First, it allows the board of that plan to receive gifts and additional contributions to support the plan. The next section affects membership in the plan. Certain DNR officers rehired between the time the plan was created and 2026 will be able to move all of their service from the Public Employment Retirement System over to DNR's retirement plan. Other members, if they became DNR officers after being law enforcement officers in the PERS system, would be able to bring up to 3 years of that PERS time into the DNR plan. Finally, any DNR officer who was rehired on or after the creation of this plan can bring all of his or her time as a DNR officer into the plan. This is already allowed in code, but this bill just clarifies the process. The purpose of this bill ultimately is to help our DNR officers in recruitment and retention. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3328, authorizing the Hatfield-McCoy Regional Recreation Authority to contract to build and maintain trails on privately owned property. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 6th.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3328 merely just gives the Hatfield and McCoy Trail Authority the ability to develop trails that aren't on public land. Sometimes they need to make connector trails between certain state areas and their trail system, and this bill merely allows them to do that to help out areas in the state. I'll entertain questions. Otherwise, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Wetzel.
Will the chairman please yield?
Will the senator yield? Senator yields.
You know, the only concern I would have with this is I've heard this from people before off the road. Is there anything to protect adjoining property owners from the noise and everything that would be created by these trails?
There's nothing specifically in this bill to do that, but it's mostly rural areas.
Well, but I mean, still, there's adjoining property owners and homes, because I know I've had complaints of people in my area where, even though it's not a trail, that people just run on their own property are very disturbing to the neighbors. I just want, there's no protection in though for those adjoining property owners, though.
There isn't, but that would only be a factor where this trail was developed on the edge of a property that adjoins someone else. But most of the time, it's down the center of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 31 yeas, 1 nay, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3370, creating loan program for certain properties and developments on the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers land, state parks, and resorts. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill would create State Parks Enhancement Loan Insurance Program to guaranteed payment of loans from lending institutions to private entities that want to develop a project in state parks and resorts operated in the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Yesterday we had a committee substitute, and combined the loan cannot exceed $10 million or more than $5 million per project. And Mr. President, I urge adoption.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 31 yeas, 1 nay, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on Economic Development moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3479, creating requirements for use of unmanned aerial vehicles. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 3479 would amend 2 sections of our state code. They're existing code sections. They're both in Chapter 61, which is a criminal code, and Article 16, Sections 1 and 2. We've passed legislation in recent years addressing drone activity and with desire on the part of the Senate and the legislature. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and compliment the work of the distinguished senator from Mercer County on that subject to try to make drone economic activity, or as we call them now, unmanned aerial vehicles. We used to call them unmanned aircraft, or drones, now we call them unmanned aerial vehicles, to promote that activity in West Virginia. This bill amends two sections which address restrictions on the use of drones, and there's a cross-reference in the bill to another statute that defines in West Virginia what critical infrastructure is. That's Chapter 61, Article 10, Section 34, but that delineates various types of facilities, which include industrial facilities such as chemical plants, steel mills, rail yards, oil or gas refineries and pipelines, military installations, critical facets of public infrastructure, and that includes dams, water treatment facilities, wireless radio transmission towers, commercial airports. So the bill clarifies and makes restrictions on the flying of drones over those activities. There are carve-outs for law enforcement purposes, but the bill requires that such law enforcement activity has to comply with the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution, which covers unreasonable searches and seizures, as well as the similar provisions that are contained in Article 3 of the West Virginia Constitution. And the bill contains a proviso establishing that landowners who wish to operate drones in the airspace over their own land, they have authority to do so, or they can hire third parties to do so. They're not impacted or prohibited from doing so by these regulations. Lastly, the bill provides an exception for news gathering. And when we started with the bill, it said accredited news gathering, but we took that out. The committee took that out of the bill, and that floor amendment was adopted yesterday. As long as they're flying at an altitude of more than 400 feet, which, as we understand it, is the ceiling for most commercial drones, without complying with whatever regulations exist from the FAA, which we have no authority or control over. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer questions. I urge the bill's passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary move to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3499 to permit joint tenancy with rights of survivorship when transfer on death deed specify joint tenancy with right of survivorship. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3499 would amend, as we amended it yesterday on the floor, the engrossed bill would amend two sections of the state code. They're both in Chapter 36, Article 12, and it's sections 11 and 13. Article 12 of Chapter 36 is the Uniform Real Property Transfer on Death Act. And the legislature enacted that. It's probably a little over 10 years ago now. Before the enactment of this act, you couldn't do a transfer on death deed, but this act permits it and has for, I think, at least a decade now. The House bill that came to us allowed what current law does not, and that is a transfer on death deed to create, upon death, a joint tenancy with a right of survivorship between or among the grantees. That was the original House bill. We yesterday amended into the bill the provisions of Senate Bill 192, same article, same act, which addressed the revocation of a transfer on death deed. Mr. President, be happy to try to answer questions the Senate may have. Otherwise, I urge the bill's passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3500, allowing consumer lenders to permit employees to conduct certain business at locations other than the licensee's designated office. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Monongalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the Lender Work from Home bill. The bill creates one new section in Chapter 46A, the West Virginia Consumer Credit and Protection Act, in Article 4, covering regulated consumer lenders. A regulated consumer lender is a West Virginia company licensed with an office in the state and authorized to make consumer loans in West Virginia. Such lender may charge higher rates of interest based on a loan amount sliding scale. The new section allows the employees of a licensee to conduct the business of the regulated consumer lender licensee at the employee's residence within 100 miles of the licensed business location. Any regulated consumer lender activity conducted by the employee at home would still be considered, reported, and regulated as loans of the West Virginia licensee. Prior to authorizing at-home work, the licensee would be required to ensure data security and privacy safeguards are in place, no in-person consumer interactions occur at the residence, risk-based monitoring and oversight processes of at-home work, no consumer information or records are maintained at the residence, and all consumer and licensee information and records remain accessible and available for regulatory oversight and examinations. The bill provides regulated consumer lenders with some flexibility as it pertains to their employees' work location while still protecting customers of such lenders. There's no fiscal note associated with the bill. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Banking and Insurance moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3510, making a supplementary appropriation to the Department of Administration, Office of Technology, Chief Technology Officer, Administration Fund. Third reading of the bill.
The question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This supplemental appropriation increases special revenue spending authority for the Office of Technology, Chief Technology Officer, Administration, current expenses appropriation by $2 million. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from 17th moves the bill be made effective for passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3511, making a supplementary appropriation to the Department of Education, State Board of Education School Lunch Program. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This supplemental appropriation would increase federal spending authority for the State Board of Education School Lunch Program in the amount of $743,436 by creating a new appropriation known as the Federal Coronavirus Pandemic Appropriation. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3529, making a supplementary appropriation to the Department of Commerce, State Board of Rehabilitation, Division of Rehabilitation Services. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Excuse me. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This supplemental appropriation would increase federal spending authority for the State Board of Rehabilitation, Division of Rehabilitation Services current expenses appropriation in the amount of $34 million. I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected to the Senate having voted into the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the bill be made effective from passage and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective from passage. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand in recess until 4:30 p.m.
Are there announcements? Senator from Brooke.
Mr. President, here are your afternoon announcements. Your Committee on Energy will be meeting in room 208 West at 1:05 p.m. That's 1:05 p.m. Your Committee on Judiciary will be meeting 10 minutes following the completion of the Energy Committee, and that will be in room 208 West. And your Committee on Finance will also meet 10 minutes following the conclusion of Energy in room 451M. Additionally, your Committee on the Rules will be meeting at 4:20 this afternoon in the President's Conference Room. Thank you.
Are there other announcements? If not, the motion on the floor is to recess until 4:30 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. We're sentencing recess till 4:30 p.m. today.